Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. I guess some people really never learn, huh? And I also guess that one of those people, unsurprisingly, is Caitlin Collins from CNN. It seems no matter how many times she humiliates herself, no matter how many L's she takes in the public, she just keeps coming back for more. I mean, you'd think by now that she would have figured it out. This administration across the board in every aspect outclasses her. They outclass her and all the rest of these clowns at CNN, yet time and time again she shows up with her little mainstream media approved talking points, ready to deliver the next prepackaged hit piece, the next gotcha moment, looking for that soundbite, and every single time without fail she walks right into the trap. It's just so funny at this point. You know, the fake news media has been running wild lately, pushing all these fake news scandals, claiming that the Trump administration is wrongfully deporting people to El Salvador. They've been making all of these dishonest accusations in a clear attempt to manufacture a scandal so they could paint Donald Trump as some sort of tyrant. And so what does Trump do in response? An absolutely genius move. He sets up the trap. He just invited Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, to the White House, sets up the typical setting at the Oval Office, lets the press come in, clearly inviting all the typical left-wing mainstream media hacks, and then baits these morons into asking their dumbass gotcha questions just so they could get completely obliterated in front of the cameras. It's a genius move, a genius trap that was set. And oh boy did it work. Another absolutely brutal day for Caitlin Collins and the rest of these corporate media parasites. Let me show you guys this masterclass in narrative control from the Trump administration. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so just take a look. I gave the backstory. The rest will speak for itself.
Return the man who your administration says was mistakenly
deported.
The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
He was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. The Supreme Court ruled, President, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
There's an illegal alien from El Salvador. With respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. It's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, under federal law, he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So we had a deportation order, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Suppose you're suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. The question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to be happening.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it. These are sick people.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility.
Freaking owned. One after another. I mean, they just took turns dunking on her. A total demolition job. Folks, the entire fake news story just imploded on live TV. I mean, talking point after talking point. And let's actually address these talking points. The first one, the media kept going on and on, making this claim that the Supreme Court has ordered the Trump administration to return this individual back on US soil. Well, now I guess the world has learned that's absolutely false. All SCOTUS said was, if El Salvador does in fact release him, then the US should facilitate his return. They never ordered it. They never exonerated him. And as Stephen Miller pointed out, I mean, what would that even accomplish? The guy's got a deportation order. Bring him back so he can go back into custody, and then we'll put him on another flight straight back to El Salvador. How stupid do you have to be to fall for this stuff? Then we've got the other major claim being made by Democrats. These individuals who are being deported are being denied due process. The Trump administration is denying them due process. Wrong again. This particular individual, which is the main guy that they've been attempting to make this case around, had 2 separate immigration courts essentially come to the conclusion that he was affiliated with MS-13. Again, not 1 immigration court, but 2. And that, of course, gives the Trump administration the full legal authority to remove him under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which, of course, the Supreme Court just recently affirmed. This wasn't some rogue action. It was legal, it was deliberate, and it was justified. Not to mention, on top of that, he had deportation orders. And then he was deported to his home country of El Salvador, and now El Salvador is holding him. What am I missing here? Oh, he wasn't afforded due process. What do you mean? Is the Trump administration supposed to ignore the deportation order, ignore the immigration court ruling that this guy was an MS-13 member, and just grant the guy another day in court where he tries to claim asylum? How dumb is that? He had a deportation order and he was simply deported. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. In other words, the entire left-wing narrative surrounding this issue has completely and utterly imploded on itself. And it's crazy to me to think that Caitlin Collins and the rest of these clowns went in thinking they were going to do damage to the Trump administration. In no universe was it ever going to end that way, because they have no standing and they're obviously coming at this thing from a totally dishonest angle. That's why it all went wrong for him. And speaking of it going wrong, the real cherry on top came with the freaking knockout punch that Nayib Bukele himself delivered. Bukele steps in and absolutely dumpstered the fake news narrative, responding with the perfect level of sarcasm. What do you want me to do? Release an identified terrorist back into the United States? You want me to smuggle him in? Exactly. A complete mic drop moment. He then even went as far to suggest that he's not necessarily eager to release the guy even in El Salvador, considering it's been confirmed that he's got ties to MS-13. Because of course, unlike mainstream leftist media, he actually takes public safety seriously.
These are sick people.
Exactly. I mean, just look at the optics here. You've got the left-wing corporate press that got baited into this moment where they were basically defending a suspected MS-13 member, feigning outrage over the deportation, trying to turn a member of a violent gang into the latest victim of Trump's tyranny, and then you've got Trump and Bukele standing there completely baffled. The optics are just perfect. They walked right into the frickin' mousetrap, once again exposed as being pro-criminal, as being anti-American, anti-public safety lunatics. Essentially, in this one moment, the Trump administration flipped the entire story on its head and used the dynamic to paint very clear contrast to highlight exactly how deranged the left wing and the left wing press has become. It's not Trump who looks bad here, the guy who's trying to deport MS-13 members. It's not Bukele, the guy who's got a very clear and incredible track record on, as he puts it, liberating his people from the criminal element in his country. It's them. It's the left. It's the press that looks bad. And I think most people watching this just saw the difference between the people who are fighting to keep the country safe and the people who want to protect violent criminals in the names of optics and narrative and dunking on Donald Trump at any cost. Another win, another trap, another idiotic journalist making a complete fool of herself. When are these people gonna learn? Clearly never. I mean, just look at CNN. They're on their frickin' last leg, and they still haven't adapted. If they haven't adapted by now, they never will. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.